On the 7th of August, 1919, at Saratoga Racecourse in upstate New York, a chestnut colt named Man o' War stood at the starting barrier facing the wrong direction. The starter dropped the webbing anyway. What followed was 2 minutes of chaos that no camera captured and no official report explained. By the time Man o' War crossed the finish line, he had lost the only race he would ever lose. And the only evidence of what went wrong existed in the memories of the people who were standing close enough to see it. This is the story of how Man o' War became the horse that an entire sport spent a century trying to explain. In the spring of 1917, the United States entered a world war, and on a breeding farm outside Lexington, Kentucky, a chestnut foal hit the ground with legs too long for his body and a fire in his eye that made the groom step back. His owner, August Belmont II, named him Man o' War and then left for France. But before this colt ever saw a starting barrier, a man at a Saratoga auction made a decision with $5,000 that nearly sent this horse into obscurity. And there is one afternoon at that same track, one race that nobody in the Man o' War story wanted to talk about afterward, that reveals more about this horse than any of the 20 victories that came after it. And if you appreciate what I am doing here, please subscribe. It means a lot to me. Now let us dive back in. Belmont's nursery stud sat on rolling blue grass outside Lexington. White fences, stone barns. It was one of the finest thoroughbred operations in North America. Belmont himself was old money. He had financed the construction of the New York subway system. He chaired the Jockey Club. He bred horses the way he built infrastructure, with patience and capital and a long view. The sire was fair play. A brilliant, violent stallion with explosive speed and a temper that made handlers carry sticks in his presence. The dam was Mahuba. She had been an unremarkable racehorse, but her blood was European royalty. Her sire, Roxanne, had won the English Triple Crown. The cross was calculated. What it produced was not. The foal, born on March the 29th, 1917, was oversized from the start. Long back, deep chest, a blaze down his face, and a copper coat that turned almost red in the sun. He moved through the paddocks at Nursery Stud like something that did not belong in a fenced space. But Belmont never saw him grow up. The war pulled him overseas, and he made a decision that would follow his name for the rest of his life. He ordered his entire yearling crop sold at auction. Every horse, including the chestnut colt with the long stride and the war name. August of 1918, the Saratoga yearling sales. Samuel Riddle, a textile manufacturer from Glen Riddle, Pennsylvania, sat in the auction pavilion with his trainer, Louis Fustel. Riddle was wealthy but careful. He had come to buy horses, not legends. When the chestnut colt walked into the ring, Fustel leaned forward. The horse was big, bigger than most yearlings. His stride covered ground that other horses needed 2 steps to match. Fustel told Riddle to bid. Riddle hesitated. The price climbed $5,000. Riddle raised his hand one last time, and the hammer fell. $5,000. It was not the highest price at that sale. It was not close. Belmont, somewhere in France, had just given away the greatest racehorse the continent would ever produce. Fustel took the colt to Glen Riddle Farm and went to work. He was a quiet man, methodical, the kind of trainer who arrived before dawn and watched without speaking. What he saw in those first weeks unsettled him. The colt was not just fast. He was uncontrollable. Exercise riders could not hold him. He ran through bits. He pulled arms out of sockets. Fustel tried heavier tack. he added lead weights under the saddle cloth. The colt did not notice. By the spring of 1919, Man o' War had grown into something that stopped people at the rail. 16 hands, 3 inches tall. A chest so deep his girth measured over 76 inches. His stride at full extension covered nearly 25 feet. Horses half his size took 3 strides to cover the same ground. Faustel hired Johnny Loftus as jockey. Loftus was one of the best riders in America. He was also reckless. He rode with instinct, not discipline, and he had a reputation for making decisions in the saddle that worked until they did not. June the 6th, 1919. Belmont Park, Man o' War's first race. He broke from the barrier clean and opened up 6 lengths on the field before the far turn. The clockers at the rail looked at their watches and then looked at each other. They did not believe the numbers. He won again 4 days later, and again, and again. 5 straight victories through the summer of 1919. He was not just beating fields, he was emptying them. Trainers saw his name on the overnight entries and scratched their horses. There was no prize money worth the humiliation, but on a Thursday afternoon in August of 1919, something happened at Saratoga that Man o' War's connections spent the rest of their lives trying to explain. August the 13th, the Sanford Memorial Stakes, 6 furlongs at Saratoga Racecourse, a field of 7 two-year-olds. Man o' War was the heaviest favorite on the card. The race should have been a formality. The starter that afternoon was a man named C.H. Pettingill. Saratoga still used the old walk-up barrier system. No mechanical starting gate, just a web of elastic stretched across the track and a starter with a switch who decided when to drop it. The system depended entirely on the starter's judgment. Pettingill's judgment that afternoon failed. Man o' War was turned nearly sideways when Pettingill released the barrier. Loftus was not ready. The colt broke last in a field of 7. A horse named Upset, 100-1, long shot trained by the veteran James Rowe Sr. and ridden by Willie Knapp, got a clean break and sprinted to the front. Loftus panicked. Instead of saving ground along the rail, he swung Man o' War wide on every turn. The colt lost lengths he could not afford. Through the stretch he came like a freight train. Eyewitnesses at the rail said he was gaining a length every 2 strides in the final furlong. His ears were flat. His nostrils were flared. He was running with the kind of fury that makes the ground shake under your feet. He ran out of racetrack. Upset won by half a length. The crowd went silent. Faustel walked to the barn without speaking to anyone. Riddle confronted Pettingill in the steward's stand. Multiple witnesses, including jockeys and trainers standing near the barrier, later testified that at least 3 horses were not facing the correct direction when the webbing dropped. No inquiry was filed. No official protest was recorded. The result stood. And here is what the title of this video means in the most literal sense. There were no race cameras in 1919 capable of capturing the start. No film, no footage. The only visual record of the Sanford Memorial Stakes is a single photograph of the finish. Everything about the botched start exists only in the words of the people who were there. The cameras missed it because the cameras that mattered did not yet exist. What Man o' War did after that loss is the reason we are still talking about him more than 100 years later. He ran 6 more races as a 2-year-old in 1919. He won all 6. Most were not competitive. In the Grand Union Hotel Stakes at Saratoga, just 8 days after the Upset loss, he won by 100 yards. The chart caller ran out of language. The official margin was listed simply as easily. His 2-year-old record finished at 9 wins from 10 starts. The single loss sat on his record like a crack in a cathedral window. It did not weaken the structure. It made you look closer. Riddle made a decision over the winter that still divides horsemen. He did not enter Man o' War in the Kentucky Derby. Riddle believed the first Saturday in May was too early in the season for a horse he intended to campaign through the fall. He did not trust the timing. He trusted the horse. The Derby would go on without the best 3-year-old in America, and it would never get the chance again. The Preakness Stakes, May of 1920, Pimlico Racecourse in Baltimore. Man o' War won by a length and a half, and the margin was a lie. Clarence Cummer, his new jockey, had been strangling him for the final quarter mile. Loftus had lost his riding license over the winter. The details were murky. The result was that Man o' War now had a rider who understood the difference between controlling a horse and fighting one. Then came the Belmont Stakes. June of 1920. A mile and 3/8 at Belmont Park. Only one horse was entered against Man o' War. Every other trainer in New York refused to run. The lone challenger, a colt named Donnacona, finished 20 lengths behind. Man o' War broke the track record. Cummer never asked him to run. And then came the match race that people still argue about in barns from Lexington to London. October the 12th, 1920. Kenilworth Park in Windsor, Ontario. Man o' War against Sir Barton. Sir Barton was the reigning Triple Crown winner, the first horse in history to sweep all 3 classics. The purse was $75,000 and a gold cup. Every newspaper in North America covered the race. Special trains ran from New York, from Baltimore, from Toronto. The track was heavy. Sir Barton's connections hoped the mud would slow Man o' War down. It did not. Man o' War took the lead within the first quarter mile and never looked back. He won by 7 lengths. He broke the track record on a surface that should have slowed him. Sir Barton's jockey, Earl Sand, said afterward that he knew by the half-mile pole his horse had no chance. He said it was like chasing a train. Man o' War's career ended that afternoon. 21 starts, 20 wins, 1 loss. He set or equaled the track record in nearly every race he entered. His total earnings were $249,465, the highest of any American racehorse at that time. And now consider the upset loss one more time. That single defeat at Saratoga did not diminish Man o' War. It defined him. Every horseman who was there that afternoon walked away more certain of the colt's ability, not less. The loss proved that the only way to beat Man o' War was to catch him facing the wrong direction and ride him into the ground from behind. And even then, you only won by half a length. The defeat was the greatest argument for his dominance that anyone could have invented. Man o' War retired to Faraway Farm near Lexington, Kentucky. He stood at stud for the next 25 years, and in that time he became something more than a racehorse. He became a pilgrimage. On Sunday afternoons, families drove from across the state to see him. At his peak, more people visited Man o' War on a given weekend than attended church in Lexington. He stood in his paddock, copper coat shining, and people lined the fence 3 deep just to watch him graze. Will Harbut, his groom, gave tours. He called Man o' War the mostest horse that ever was. He said it so many times that the phrase became part of the language. As a sire, Man o' War reshaped American racing. He produced War Admiral, who won the Triple Crown in 1937 and faced Seabiscuit in the most famous match race of the 20th century. He produced Hardtack, who sired Seabiscuit himself. the horse that captured the Depression era, the little underdog that a nation fell in love with, carried Man o' War's blood through his father's side. Two of the most important racehorses of the 1930s traced back to the same copper chestnut standing in a paddock in Kentucky. The influence did not stop there. Dozens of modern thoroughbred lines carry Man o' War's genetics. He changed what breeders looked for in a stallion: size, stride, heart, a deep chest, and a will that did not bend. There is a man in Lexington tonight who works as a groom at a training center off Versailles Road. The horse he walks every morning is a fifth-generation descendant of Man o' War. He has never seen the old horse run. He does not need to. He sees it every morning in the way this one moves. There is a woman in Saratoga Springs who gives walking tours of the old track. She stops at the same spot every time, the place where the starting barrier stood on August the 13th, 1919, and tells the story of the start that nobody saw. Man o' War died on the 1st of November, 1947. He was 30 years old. His funeral was broadcast on national radio. 2,000 people stood in the rain at Faraway Farm and watched as he was lowered into the ground in a custom oak casket lined with his racing colors, yellow and black. Will Harbut had died just a few weeks before him. Some people at the farm said the horse stopped eating after that. A life-size bronze statue by the sculptor Herbert Hazeltine was later placed at the Kentucky Horse Park, where Man o' War's remains were moved and reinterred. The statue stands facing east, toward Saratoga. On a quiet morning at Saratoga Racecourse, the starting area of the old track looks like any other stretch of dirt. No plaque, no marker. The cameras missed the moment that made Man o' War immortal, and the ground has long forgotten it. But the bloodlines remember, and so does anyone who has ever heard the name. Another story from Bridled. If you like this story, don't miss the next one appearing on your screen.